Hey guys, this is Tom Hanks. Welcome to another stream. Um, oh, hey James, how are you doing? You'll probably have to leave soon. That's okay. That's fine. Um, yeah. So today we're gonna be streaming some more automation in BeamNG. Hey Firebird02, how's it going? Um, and today we're doing the community challenge. Um, so the idea of the community challenge was, 2006 in 2016, the Mitsubishi Evo went out of production. If they returned it in 2020, what would it be like? So what would a 2020 Mitsubishi Evo be like, right? Now, in my opinion, I think it would be something like this. Let's take a look. Because I haven't revealed my car yet. I'll do this. Okay, there we go. So this is my Evo 11 concept. You can see that I took inspiration, obviously, of the from the regular Mitsubishi line of cars. It looks pretty similar on the front, like the grille especially. It has these individual round headlights, like the older cars used to have. Along with some modernized touches, of course, the LEDs and whatnot. It still has a big wing. It still has a big exhaust. It has the three individual taillights as well, with one of them being the indicator, as well as some more LEDs around them. It has a big wing, as I said. It has got some big exhaust, lips front and rear, and it's a relatively small four-door sedan, just like the Evo was. So let's actually oh shit, yeah, I forgot that in automation F10 actually hides the overlay completely, but F10 is also the hotkey I use to start and stop recording. So let me fix that real quick so I can actually get out of this mode again. So it should be that, let's say. Okay, now I can press F10 again, and it'll bring the overlay back. Okay. Now, I'm also, of course, gonna give this a little bit more of an in-depth review. But of course, this is outside of the competition. I just wanna present it to you a little bit. So this is, of course, a four-door sedan with all-wheel drive, and as you saw, sort of Mitsubishi as inspired styling with a little bit more modern touches on it. Now let's take a look at what makes this car, right? If automation would be kind enough to load. Alright. So this is a this is a light AHS steel monocoque with fiberglass panels. I'm sure they'd find some fiberglass somewhere. Maybe not the. Maybe not the. That is sort of like a questionable decision, maybe as far as realism goes. But front transverse all-wheel drive is pretty much spot on what the Evo used to have. Six-speed manual. I think that's one of the more important components of keeping the spirit alive. Of course, the later Evos did have an optional dual clutch gearbox, but anyway, a manual has always been the standard. It has double wishbones front and rear. It has a 2-liter turbocharged inline-4 engine with 350 horsepower, and yeah, I guess it revs to 8,500 RPM. So that is pretty much what you'd expect from it, I think. It's got an electric limited slip diff, it's got a 60-40 power distribution split on the all-wheel drive, it's got sports tires, 245s all around on 19-inch magnesium rims. Then it's got vented discs front and rear. It's got a lot of downforce, because it's an Evo, it needs it in order to really stick to the road that the way that the Evo always has done. It's gonna have 4 seats, sport interior, standard infotainment. The Evo has never really had the best interior. Give me a second here. Okay. Yeah, active sport suspension, semi-active and passive. And yeah, that will be the hardware. It does 0 to 100 kilometers an hour in 4.4 seconds, has a top speed of 251 kilometers an hour, or 156, I believe, miles an hour. So again, top speed has never been like the strongest with the Evo, but this should definitely still be along the lines of what it would do. All right, and now let's check out the other entries. That would be the first one. That is the Subaru Horizon, made by no, that's the other one. There we go. It's made by Pedro Pereira. Okay. Right, now first impression, I thought we were in 2020. Now, aesthetically, this is certainly not something you'd see in 2020. Unless you made like a replica of a historic car from like the 70s. Then again, this I don't. Well, the Lancer Evo didn't exist back then. You see, that's the problem there. So, unfortunately, as far as the outside goes, this pretty much this just isn't up to its time. What do we got? A steel light truck monocoque. Certainly a questionable decision for an Evo as well. Aluminium panels are fine. Front transfers, all-wheel drive is fine. 6-speed manual is good. Solid axle leaf on the front. Again, something you wouldn't really see on an Evo at all, especially in 2020. The weight distribution is 60 to 40, which I guess is almost inevitable if you put a 3-liter turbocharged V6 on the front of such a small car. That's speaking of the engine. It's a 3-liter twin turbocharged V6, making 335 horsepower at 6,300 RPM, but it revs to 8,500. Now the torque is very peaky. It peaks at like 4,000 RPM and drops off immediately. And the engine makes peak power at like 6,300 RPM, and everything past, say, 7,500 RPM or something is just wasted. I mean, even if we go up to 7,000 RPM and cut it there, it'll still it would still have a lot of a lot of revs past the point where it makes its peak power. So this is kind of This is kind of a suboptimal tune on the engine, I would say. Also, I don't know why an Evo would have 2 reverse flow mufflers to be nice and quiet. Well, so things on this one aren't looking amazing at the moment. 4-wheel drive, of course, 6-speed manual, electric limited slip diff, slightly closer to 50-50 power split. It's got 225s all around, making the slightest amount of wheel spin actually. Actually, a lot of wheel spin in first gear. And then vented discs front and rear. Some brake fade actually, because you know, you probably could have used some more what's it called, pistons. Yeah, it says it right there what it's called. A fully clad under tray with, you know, 50-50 everything. No tuning there whatsoever. 5 seats. Yeah, it's fine. It's kind of unusual maybe, but it's doable, I'd say. Premium heads-up display. Yeah, that's fine. Because in a performance car like this, I guess these days you would expect a heads-up display, wouldn't you? Another for the geeks to be able to measure their G and the acceleration figures and whatnot, the revs at each given time, more accessibly. Yeah. Electric variable power steering and ESC, no launch control because you know, it's a manual. And then standard 10 safety is fine. Active sports and active passive. Very low amounts of camber and very high ride height. So this would be more of an off-road rally car, right? I guess. But then, still, why would you give it a solid axle up front? Doesn't make any sense. And then off-road is actually only at 21.1 even with this really high ride height. So I guess in the end you invested into something that didn't really turn out to be worth it, I guess. This as a 2020 Mitsubishi Evo concept doesn't seem to have very much in common with an Evo, other than being a 4-door sedan with all-wheel drive. And especially it doesn't really, yeah, I mean, it doesn't look the part, and it doesn't really have the components either to really be viable as a 2020 Evo. And the suspension tuning could use a lot of work in that regard as well. It's actually very soft too. So this is, I don't think this fits the 2020 Mitsubishi Evo sort of theme very well. Next up is the Eagle Evo, and that one was sent in by Firebird02. Okay, that's you. Right. Let's take a look at that. Sadly, you made it in 2012. So that is one immediate thing that jumps to mind. You made it in 2012. So I'm not sure if I should review this as a 2012 car or as a 2020, you know, concept car. But anyway, it has a light HS steel monocoque chassis, which is adequate, I think. Same are the aluminum panels. It's got front launcher tool on all-wheel drive. Still fairly adequate, I think, even though the Evo in real life had a transverse engine layout, but that's not too big of a deal. 6-speed dual clutch is something that you could have gotten in a real Evo, so totally fine. Double wishbones front, multi-link rear, also completely fine. And then we have a 4-liter inline 5 engine. Now that's certainly a cool and unique engine configuration and layout. The only trouble I see with that is, where would Mitsubishi get that engine from? Right? They're like, I mean, in the wildest of dreams, right? You could take a Dodge Viper's V10, cut it in half, and then sort of change the displacement a little bit and get it down to 4 liters. But would that really be something that Mitsubishi would be able to do within the next 2 years? I kind of doubt it. And especially, more importantly, especially with the downsizing and the fuel efficiency craze, a 4-liter inline 5 just doesn't seem to be the best choice there. Like, even today, people want even performance cars to be fuel efficient, which is, not always possible. And I guess this is a cool engine for sure. It makes a nice power and torque curve. Maybe a little bit too many revs past the peak power, but that's okay. So how does this perform? Let's check out the rest first. 6-speed dual clutch, we've said that. It's an electric diff, 40 to 60. Sports compound tires, 245s all around. 17-inch alloy rims. I kind of feel like the Evo would have bigger rims than that, but 17 is, I guess it's acceptable. Vented discs front and rear, only 2 pistons in the front and 1 in the rear. And then fully clad under tray. Decent amount of downforce, but no actual wing. Yeah, I mean, it does have a lip on the rear and one on the front, but no rear wing. So it's not gonna make it actually still makes lift, even if the front wing angle maxed out. Interesting. Oh, and lots of brake airflow to prevent the brake fade. That's good. And then 4 seats with sport interior and standard infotainment. You do have some brake fade actually, even with the brake airflow. We have electric variable power steering and ESC with launch control. Makes perfect sense for the double clutch transmission, of course. Standard 90 safety and an active sport suspension. It's sitting quite low, as it probably should as an Evo. The roll angle is kind of, yeah, the sway bars are super soft. Wow. You should probably increase the stiffness of those quite a bit. And so this makes 392.6 horsepower, so let's just round it up to 393. That's a lot of power. But there was, of course, the Evo FQ400 version, so I guess this would be sort of in that camp. It does 0 to 100 in 3.9 seconds. Top speed is 267. And overall, yeah, I expect this to perform relatively well. As far as the hot hatchback layout goes, I don't think it's too far out of the question. Because everyone has a hatchback these days, and the Evo's long-term rival, the WRX, of course, is a hatchback. So Mitsubishi going that route would not be completely illogical. It would actually make a decent amount of sense. Overall, I think this is a pretty decent attempt of catching the spirit of the Evo, with the one exception, I guess, being the 4-liter in 9.5. I mean, it's double the capacity that the Evo typically had, which is a 2-liter in 9.4. It does make a nice power and torque, but it may not fit the style of car and also the times of 2020. That's the one thing I would say. Aesthetically, it doesn't really resemble any particular Mitsubishi either. Not really the Evo either, but I mean the rear, those are like the Evo had kind of similar lights to these ones. Yeah, I guess aesthetically it doesn't really work too well as a Mitsubishi, but mechanically it sort of does, with the one question mark being the engine. But of course we're gonna drive all the cars later as well in Beam. Then the Shimuchibu Foser. That was submitted by Anselmo Pereira. Hi Turbo Freak 88884444. How are you doing? We're in the middle of the community challenge. Okay. So here we have another hatchback. As I said, the idea of a hatchback is not completely implausible. This does have some vents on the hood, which occasionally the Evo had. Of course, it is in 2020, unlike the last car we saw. It has pretty pointy headlights. Overall, the front fascia doesn't really look like a Mitsubishi, but I guess it does come in an adequate color. Oh, you mirrored that and then the turbo got sort of... It's correct on this side, but it's messed up on this side. Yeah. All automation has always done that. This doesn't have a wing either, which is probably worth noting. It does not have a lip on the rear, but it does have one on the front. Okay. So it has a light IHS steel monocoque and partial aluminum panels. Totally fine. Front transverse all-wheel drive. Again, totally fine. 6-speed dual clutch is fine. There are wishbones front and rear. And now let's get to the engine. This is a 2.1 liter turbocharged, what was it? 4-cylinder engine. Okay. 260 horsepower is totally fine. The Evo did have some versions with less than 300 horsepower as well. So this would be more of an entry level, I guess. And let's see. Well, again, sort of, it seems to be a pretty common thing apparently. Like if you cut off the revs at 8,000, it would still be totally fine. Like everything that goes past 8,000 is completely wasted. But I mean, other than that, the engine actually is tuned fine. It doesn't make a whole lot of power, but as I said, this would be more like an entry-level Evo. It has a 6-speed dual clutch gearbox and electric diff. 55% front, huh? And then 45% rear. That's the first car we see that has more power going to the front than to the rear. 225s all around. 17-inch alloy rims, and then we have vented discs front and rear. Everyone has brake fade apparently. Is that a new trend? And then we have a fully clad under tray. Front and rear wing angles are both set to 50. But of course there's no rear lip. There is one on the front, so that is why the front has slightly less lift than the rear. We have 5 seats, standard interior and infotainment. We have electric variable power steering and ESC. No launch control though. I feel like you should add that. Well, then again, maybe not for the 260 horsepower version. Maybe for the stronger ones. Standard tense safety is fine. Active comfort springs are an interesting choice. Especially when you consider here, if you look at the comparison, the bars, you give up a lot of drivability and some sportiness in order for extra comfort, which the Evo has never really been about. So, I mean, I guess the active comfort springs are also better off-road, but we're talking about the road version here. Sure, the road version of the Evo has always been at least decent off-road, but it's never been like a proper rally car. Like the car that you would buy at Mitsubishi was never really a proper like rally car. It had some of the components in common, sure, but it was like lower, stiffer, like it wouldn't work that well off-road. The suspension tuning is okay, but we do have a lot of roll here. Overall, this does 0 to 100 in 5.3 seconds, which is acceptable. And it has a top speed of 244, which is also acceptable. Overall, how do I feel about this? Again, I don't think it would be out of the question to for Mitsubishi to make a hatchback version of the Evo. The rear end might work for Mitsubishi. The front end is kind of far away from what they would do, except for maybe the hood vents. The engine tuning is fine. The suspension tuning is good. So from that perspective, I like this. I like this decently enough. But what we're missing is, for one, a little bit of power, and for two, some downforce. Apart from that, this could be a decent like entry-level version of the Evo. And then we have one more entry. The Mitsubishi Evo 11 RSM6 by Vinny Scarletto, aka Sedan 57 Chevy as he's called here on Twitch. And this is an SUV. Now when I first saw this, when I first received the entry, I was like, an SUV? Really? But actually, Mitsubishi did make a sort of lifted SUV-esque rally version of the Lancer at one point in time. So I guess it's not completely unrealistic. And of course, with the way that the automotive industry is headed and SUVs taking over the world, this would be sort of a smart marketing choice. Then again, you already have the Alfa Romeo Stelvio in its quadrifoglio verde trim, which makes like 500 horsepower and goes like stink. Which obviously people would expect this thing to compete against, and with a 325 horsepower it can't. So this would be its own thing, I guess. Maybe make it a, yeah, this is a sort of smaller SUV, 265 wheelbase. It's got a light HS steel monocoque, partial aluminum panels, front transverse all-wheel drive, 6-speed dual clutch transmission, back thrusters up front and multi-link in the rear. That's all fine. And we do have a 3.4 liter V6 under the bonnet. Just a base model. Now, Mitsubishi has made some V6s in the past. The Evo never got one, to the best of my knowledge, but I mean, it could in the future, I guess. And this one revs up to 8,300 RPM. It is naturally aspirated. Now the fact that this is naturally aspirated might be somewhat curious in the sense that this is of course a tall, heavy vehicle. It might need a little bit of extra torque, maybe. We'll drive it in BeamNG and find out, but I actually kind of like it so far. The rear end as well looks pretty much Mitsubishi-esque, and the front, of course, as obviously that's a Mitsubishi right there. And then let's check out some of the rest. It's a 6-speed dual clutch and open diff. Now that might be interesting because, well, the Evo was all about handling, and an open diff is traditionally not really the best way of making a car handle well. We've got a sports tires, 245s all around with 18-inch alloy rims. We've got vented discs front and rear. This does not have brake fade. And then we have no under tray and max sliders on the front and rear wing angles, because this does have a lip on either end. We have a standard interior and basic infotainment. Again, the Evo has never really been about having the best interior. Electric variable power steering and ESC with launch control, and then we have standard 10 safety. Standard springs is certainly sort of an interesting choice here, because everybody else was going for like active suspension. Adaptive dampers and semi-active swaivers, so you didn't even really go for the high-end options there. The suspension tuning looks mostly fine. The roll angle is at 4.2 degrees. It does 0 to 100 in 4.7 seconds, which is good. Top speed is slightly restricted, obviously due to the fact that this is an SUV. But apart from that, I think this is actually a pretty good attempt of making a 2020 Evo. Time will tell if Mitsubishi will actually make one for one. And if they do, will it be an SUV? I mean, it's not implausible. But of course the Evo's fan base would kind of be rioting, because in the past it's always been a sedan, and if they made it into an SUV now, might not get the best response. But then again, think about this for a second. The Evo has always been a Lancer evolution. Like, the Evo has never been its own model. So what if instead of making a Lancer evolution, they would make like an ASX evolution or whatever? Or I can't think of any other name of a Mitsubishi SUV at the moment, but you get the idea. What if they make an evolution, a version of one of their SUVs instead? So now what I gotta do is I gotta export all of these into Beam. And then we're gonna drive them. Okay. let's get this one. Alright. 2 more to go. There's the Shimu Chibu Foser. That name is a tongue twister, actually. I've already exported my car to Beam, of course, because, you know, I've driven it quite a bit while testing and tweaking it. I'm gonna need to rework my minivan. I mean, sure. Alright, and in the meantime, while this is finalizing the export, I'm gonna switch to this screen for a second while we're closing automation and loading Beam. Next challenge should be in German GT Coupe 90s. Yeah, I mean, that sounds fun. So you would have something like the original Mercedes CL, the BMW 8 Series, stuff like that. Yeah. Why not? Launch game. Alright. Apparently Windows doesn't like Beam that much. So you should be seeing Beam soon. Okay, now let's test these cars. Windows doesn't like much of anything these days. I mean, yeah, Windows. I guess Windows 10. I guess Windows 10 is sort of like maybe a little bit too strict in a lot of things. But I like Windows 10 in terms of the UI and how accessible everything is. I like it a lot for that. But as one particular thing kind of annoys me oftentimes, and that is that you can't like skip updates anymore. I mean, yeah, you can skip them temporarily, but it'll just automatically install it later. If you don't want to update your machine, you're sort of out of luck. So let's see. Who did we have first? The Subaru Horizon Evolution. Okay. Wow, this bounces around quite a bit while shifting. Yeah, it is really soft. if that was just me braking late or whether the brakes on this are actually not that good. I'll pay more attention to my braking points. Okay. 127. Oh. Yeah, this understeers a lot. Yeah, I think this is just too soft for the racetrack. I was kind of holding off on that statement for a little bit just to try and give it a little bit more of a chance, but I think this is too soft for the racetrack. Well, there I braked a lot too early apparently. 70 sports sedans. What would you really be going up against then, though? Because what did you really have in the 70s that would be classified as a sports sedan? Apart from maybe the Alfa Romeo Giulia, I guess. But you wouldn't really call that a sports sedan today, would you? And we already have some brake fade on this one. Oh my. Yeah, also like in the, as we saw in automation, really, the engine does sort of lose a lot of its grunt in the top range of the RPM band. So yeah. I want to take this one to the automation rally track as well, just to see if it does much better there. I want to do this. I want to believe that this car is actually good there, because it is soft and it does have pretty high ride height, which is why it doesn't really work that well here, but maybe it works off-road. So I guess we're gonna try and find out a little bit later. I'm gonna finish this lap and then I'm gonna jump into the next car. Because this just feels too soft. And the engine does feel noticeably weaker in the top range than it does in like the mid-range. Okay, I guess I'm gonna stop here. Right. Next up would have been the Eagle Evo, I think. Now this is the one with the 4-liter inline-5 and 393 horsepower, so it should be at least quick in a straight line for sure. well, it does definitely drift, which is something that the Evo, of course, also likes doing. Very nice there. And it does go quite well in a straight line. But due to the lack of downforce, it might actually be sort of problematic in this upcoming fast left-hander. But we'll see. We'll take it once it comes. I did actually brake there a little bit and yeah. It slid. Yeah, it completely lost traction there due to a lack of downforce. I'll try to do it better next lap. Maybe slow down a little bit more. Because I have to say, apart from that, this handles pretty damn well. Could maybe use a little bit of downforce for the fast left-hander. But apart from that, this handles pretty damn well. I'm gonna do one more lap though, just because I also did 2 laps in the other car, and I want to treat everyone's car with equal amounts of well, laps, I guess, for lack of a better word. Yeah, it did that chicane really nicely. It does like losing traction though. Like it's one of those all-wheel drives that's like, yeah, you got grip, but you can also do that pretty easily. So now let's see. The moment of truth is approaching. I'm gonna be a little bit more careful with the braking this time and with the turning in. It's whoa. Yeah. Yeah, it could. Whoa. Well. Yeah. Okay. Okay, yeah, I guess this could use some downforce. Yeah, it's pulling to the right now. I gotta reset it really quick. Yeah, it's a shame. Because apart from that, I really like the way this drives. I was a little bit late on the braking there. That was my bad, by the way. It's not on the car. And so is the wide line that I took there. I guess the thing is, yes, hot hatchback is certainly a realistic thing that the Evo, a realistic direction that the Evo could go. Same goes for the SUV. But the Evo has always had a big wing on the back because it just gives it that much stability, like and grip that it needs because it's going fast. And with a hatchback or an SUV, a big wing just looks stupid. This is the 260 horsepower inland 4 car here, and it doesn't feel that much slower than the previous cars we've driven. I mean, okay, here it does feel slower compared to the previous car, but compared to the first car, this is completely fine. This is completely up to par with the first car we've driven. How will it do here though? Because this also has no downforce. Oh. Okay. A little bit of a wiggle there, but it made it through. As far as like handling behavior goes, I like this a lot. It's responsive and agile, has decent amounts of grip. And it feels lighter than it is, because this is, after all, like 1600 and a little bit kilograms. It feels lighter than that. So I have to say, good job on the suspension tuning. And this doesn't actually feel like it's suffering that much in the higher revs that are past its peak power. Don't ask me why, but yeah, this feels good. Again, could maybe use a little bit of downforce for some more stability in the fast left-hander. That was late braking on my part. But apart from that, this feels good. So let's see how we do this time. Oh man, why didn't I shift there? The engine is pretty quiet though. Fine. Yeah, this is good. A little bit of brake fading. We saw that in game. But apart from like it hasn't hindered the braking performance so far. Yeah, this feels good. As like a baseline version of the new Evo, this would be really good actually. This wouldn't work as like the top of the line version of the Evo, because for that it just needs a little bit more grunt. But as the base version, this would be completely fine. Okay, now let's drive the last car in the lineup before we get to my own car. Mitsubishi Evo 11. There we go. That engine is much louder immediately. Wow, this is pretty soft too. Yeah, and with the open diff, it kind of slows itself down through these corners. Yeah, the open diff really hindered the acceleration out of that corner there. Again, no downforce in this one. We've seen that on 2 cars so far. One of them spun both laps, one of them didn't. So how will this one stack up? Okay, this one's safe through here. But as kind of expected, in the high speed part, it kind of starts losing a little bit of forward momentum because it just has a terrible drag coefficient due to being an SUV. Yeah, the open diff is sort of slowing this down at the exit of a corner. Apart from that, like the initial turning is fine, but you see that? The way it's sort of like... Yeah, or like right there. The open diff is really hurting this car. If this had an electric diff like the other entries we've seen so far, I think this would be performing a lot better. Yeah, lost a lot of momentum at the exit of that corner. Yeah, and right there as well, like almost stalled there. So the open diff is the one thing that hurts this, which is kind of a shame. Because otherwise I actually like this quite a bit. I like the engine too. So, conclusions to this one, I wish it had a diff. Other than that, I have to say it's actually pretty good, good driving, a pretty well driving car. This doesn't actually need too much downforce apparently. Because through here, it's fine. Oh, okay. Through here it isn't apparently. What did I do differently this lap than last lap on at this point? I must have been done something differently, but Yeah, gonna reset this car real quick. Just like I did with everyone else, because the suspension was damaged somewhat. But yeah, afterline, the way it hooks up and goes is actually pretty good. Again, here it should have let go a little bit and actually accelerated through the exit of the corner rather than just slowed down due to the open diff. Yeah, man. It's a shame that one thing can make such a tremendous difference. That in this case being the diff. Now let's actually drive my own car. There it is. Then I'll take them to the off-road course and then I'll determine a winner. So this again is a 2-liter turbocharged 994 with 350 horsepower and a 6-speed manual transmission. This is really quite stiff and doesn't really let go that easily of the back end, but it does have a lot of grip. This does actually make a good amount of downforce. I'm telling you, this car is easy mode around here. It's so grippy, so stable, like everywhere. Shouldn't have shifted into second gear, but okay. It is what it is. I mean, I can of course provide the download link to that again in the YouTube VOD. But this, to me, is how an Evo should drive, because it's like quick and agile. It feels light, and if I'm not mistaken, this actually is the lightest car that we've looked at today. Has a decent amount of ground, but not a lot, and it has a lot of downforce, which combined with the all-wheel drive, of course, makes it just stick to the road. It's just Like, look at that, we're gonna go through here flat out. I'm full on the throttle. And nothing. There I was late on the brakes, but you know, that's fine. Okay, and next up, I'll go to the automation rally track, and there we'll see what's what when it comes to off-road driving, because off-road driving has never really been super relevant to the street version of the Evo, and that was me being dumb. But of course, it's still an Evo, which, you know, it's a rally icon basically, and as such, it should do at least okay off-road. So let's see. Rally track, there we are. How do I get these? Like they made they changed the Steam chat, and how do I make these notifications go away now? Because now you can't really go offline in Steam chat anymore. Instead, you can only go invisible, and that is where I'm at. But it does not prevent these notifications from popping up, and that's annoying. You were first. Now you really gotta deliver, because with the soft that one's on me. Should have braked earlier, because I know that this corner is tight. You know what? I'm gonna give you another chance. Respawn at the start. Oh man, this understeer is so bad. Even, yeah, look, what the hell. Yeah, this is just way too soft. Even for an off-road track like this. And yeah, we can kick the tail end out a little bit, which can be amusing, but mostly I just want the car to handle. Whoa, my. Okay, this is way too soft. It bounces around way too much. Okay, and here we are at the start line again. Safe to say this didn't really convince me on the rally track either. Let's check out you. Holy hell, this just accelerates so much faster than the last car, which just drove. This wants to go sideways actually quite a bit, as you can probably see. This is also kind of soft, but not nearly as soft as the previous car we drove. Oh, yeah, my bad. Yeah, this is fine here. This is fine off-road. Like, off-road you're most certainly not gonna do the same sort of speeds that you're gonna do on a racetrack anyway. So you don't really feel the fact that it doesn't have downforce as much. And this feels just more stable, and still it likes to drift without ever really, you know, coming close to getting out of hand. Let's see what this does, because I like this quite a lot on the track. That was on me, braking way too late. Again, going a little bit too much on the throttle. This doesn't have quite such an easy time kicking the tail out, probably because it just doesn't have as much power. And he can still do it, of course, as you saw right there. Okay. I mean, this is just a very bumpy track, of course. But the first car was way too bouncy, so that all of these bumps would actually completely like bounce it around way too much. This feels okay here. I feel like the previous car did feel a little bit better, though this was also decent. Don't get fooled by the roll at the end. Like, that was just on me. Gonna go back to the starting line right here. Hello, were you in the automation car design challenges? I was, and I did okay in some. I did not too well in others. I did not make it to the finals in a category, I think, if I remember correctly. Oh yeah, we need to do that again. Maybe the open diff will actually pay dividends here. It kind of digs the inside wheel in, and then it holds the line better. It doesn't get carried to the outside as much as the other cars do, which have limited slip diffs, of course. But that's just the nature of a limited slip diff, which I guess in turn would mean that an open diff is actually better off-road, because you don't risk going off the road as much. Suspension-wise, this seems completely fine for off-road. Well, that one it's entirely on me. Okay, I can't get out. I can't get out. That don't get fooled that it was entirely on me. Like yeah, I was being an idiot there. But yeah, this feels decent off-road, definitely. This feels totally fine. I guess more stable than this one, but a little bit less, you know, risk-reward sort of fun, if you will. Yep, wonder why I picked an open diff. I made a good SUV that doubled as a sporty car. Yeah, I mean, you did that well, I have to say. But let's see how this does. That was... Must be said, I only tried this track once before with this car while testing, so... Well, this... Oh, beautiful. Okay. Well, I shouldn't talk like that about my own car, but... Yeah, it almost feels a little bit harsh for this, I have to say, like... But the drifts off-road are really nice in this one. So, conclusions. Making my mother's minivan into Beam. Okay, nice. That's not... That actually sounds like a decently fun little challenge. Conclusion. You are out. I'm sorry, but the Subaru Horizon Evolution does not fit the 2020 Evo theme aesthetically or in the way it drives. Therefore, it cannot win. Now, the Eagle Evo and the Shimuchibu Foser RC220 both don't really look like an Evo, but they drive pretty damn well. The Evo 11 here, the SUV, drives well off-road, not exactly as well on-road though, which is where most people are going to be using these anyway. However, it also looks a lot like a Mitsubishi. Now this is going to be a tough choice. What I'm really missing from the Eagle is some downforce, because it does actually make nearly 400 horsepower, and we saw what that does in the fast left-hander on the automation track. It spun both times, even though I was being more careful in the second lap. So yeah, it just doesn't have the downforce to make it through the high speed corners, which is a shame because it's so powerful. This one makes a great entry level Evo 11 in the way it drives, and so does this. Well, except for the open diff maybe. Now it's kind of like the way it drives versus the way it looks. Both have pretty realistic drivetrains, I'd say. This, of course, looks more like a Mitsubishi. This, I believe, drives more like an Evo should. But at the end of the day, I guess it's the Evo was more about the way it drives, right? And I guess adding a wing to the more powerful versions of this one would probably be easier to manifest in real life than you know, adding a diff and therefore revise the drivetrain for this one with the more powerful versions. So it's a tough decision really between the two, because this is good off-road, the Mitsubishi Evo 11, but considering that most people are going to be driving the car on the road anyway, I think I'm going to give it to this, the Shimochibo Foser RC220. This is not the fastest car. In fact, it is, I believe, actually in a straight line it might be the slowest car we have here. But consider that it still has 260 horsepower, which is completely fine for a base version of an Evo. And of course, it's a turbocharged inline-4, which is what the Evo always had. 4-wheel drive with a 6-speed dual clutch gearbox. Despite not having a rear wing, this did not feel really unstable at all through the fast left-hander on the automation track. And I think this would be a sort of the car that would be easy to get into for beginners. Like, I imagine that the least powerful version of the Mitsubishi Evo, I believe it was like 280 horsepower, that was probably popular with people who wanted an Evo but didn't actually dare go for anything more powerful because they were sort of new to driving fast cars. And this would fit that bill perfectly. Yes, it's a hot hatchback, whereas the real Evo was a sedan. But the Evo becoming a hot hatchback is not out of the question, I think, because the WRX is a hot hatchback, and I guess the Audi S3 is a German alternative, let's say. Even though of course the Audi is more expensive, but it does have a similar sort of base formula, which is a hot hatchback with 4-wheel drive and a turbocharged 2-point-something liter engine, making around 300 horsepower. So in that respect, I think this would do really well. It could maybe use a little bit more Mitsubishi-esque styling, but you know, that's doable. In the way it drives, I think this is pretty solid. And as a result, and also as a result of the fact that you can of course mod the engine. It's a 2.1 liter that on turbo that only makes 260 horsepower. We can get a lot more power out of a 2.1 liter these days. And yeah, I guess all of these factors combined make it so that this is probably, and this is my preferred choice out of all the entries we've got. Unfortunately, I only got 4 entries, but between these 4, all of them had their own unique traits. Certainly, we didn't really see 2 cars that were very similar to each other, and I appreciate that, because variety is the spice of life. Oh shit, I thought I could make it through there. Yeah, so this wins the community challenge. Congratulations. And I think I'm gonna... Oh, well, I didn't pay attention to the track there. I was watching the chat, but yeah, this wins the community challenge. And I should really stop looking at chat when driving around such tight corners. congratulations to Anselmo Pereira, who made this car, and sadly there aren't any prizes for this competition, but you do get the honor of having built the best 2020 Mitsubishi Evo concept in this competition. And I think I'm gonna call the stream a little bit earlier today, because I know I could play some more automation and Beam just for fun, but I'm gonna do that tomorrow anyway, and I don't want to burn myself out too much by playing it, you know, excessively. And that's why I'm gonna call the stream here today. Hope you guys enjoyed. And of course, I would be happy to host another community challenge in the future. And I hope to see you guys tomorrow. I'll start at 4 p.m. GMT. Oh my god. Yeah, tomorrow I'll start at 4 p.m. GMT, which is 2 hours earlier than today. And hope to see you guys there. We'll do some more fun stuff in automation and Beam. Until then, have a good one. Bye bye.